Nation in Conversation, proudly brought to you by Afgreen, Fort Knox, Hinterland, Monsanto, Nedbank, NWK and Sendes. Good farmers who take seriously their duties as stewards of creation and of their land's inheritors contribute to the welfare of society in more ways than society usually acknowledges or even knows. These farmers produce valuable goods, of course, but they also conserve soil. They conserve water. They conserve wildlife. They conserve open space. They conserve scenery.
Good day and welcome to Nation in Conversation with me, Theo Foster. Today's discussion is about energy with a specific focus on renewable energy. You can follow us on Twitter at NationConverse or follow the website nationinconversation.co.za. Joining me in the studio today is Charles Senekal, owner of Senekal Farming, and Mark Boshoff, his head strategic initiatives at Nedbank Business Banking. Welcome, gentlemen. Charles, I want to start with you. From a big farming operation, obviously energy and resources is an important cost element. And if we look at the price of electricity, the way it's gone up, that means it will squeeze the margin and the profitability of any big farming entity. As a farmer, how do you approach that?
So it's imperative that we address that in a big farming operation, because eventually it'll catch you. The saving of power is equally important to the generation of power. And if you can save power, you don't have to generate that. You can then channel it elsewhere. Yes, I have done a lot of work on research. My son is spending most of his time on researching cheaper ways to generate electricity. We have decided to build what we call a power plant on the farm, biomass power plant, as well as a solar plant. The solar plant's application is still with NERSA, and we hope to get positive feedback in the very near future. The reason why we're doing it is exactly what you said. I can't see Eskom escalating at a CPI rate in the future. And if you do this project and it is established, then you will get CPI price increases. So if you do that, I think there's a great future for producing your own electricity on the farm and saving by new technologies.
Charles, you're now looking at a power generation plant, but that's not the first big infrastructure plant that you guys have done. You were involved in a water scheme a number of years ago. Just take us back to that.
Theo, in 1999, we had a severe drought in northern Zululand. The Makuzi River flows through my farm, and the water, the wells and everything in the what we call the trust area dried up. So I used an excavator to dig a big dam on my farm, and little buckies were lining up there every day with 20-liter containers, and we had a Honda engine, and I would fill it up for them. And I did it free of charge, and I loved it. But that brought me very close to the community. And when the rains came, it was in December, and I was enjoying my holiday home at Belito, and I was listening to Deputy President talking, saying that the year 2000 will be the year of delivery, service delivery. I said to my wife, why don't we build a proper pipeline from the third largest dam in South Africa to our little town?
At that point, the Deputy President is today the President.
Yes, yes. Well, of course, I phoned him, spoke to his secretary, Dr. Bongani Kumalo. It was very well accepted, my proposal. And he said, listen, the president wants to meet you in Cape Town. And while we were packing our luggage, phone rang, the president, a deputy president himself saying, hey, I'm coming to you, you're not coming to me. And we quickly settled an agreement. And he said, unfortunately, his planned scheme would be finished by December. And if mine is not finished in December, they will definitely have a penalty on me. And I hired people, the best I could come across, and we started trenching, laying a 1.5 meter pipeline. It cost me an arm and a leg, but I did it for my farming operation and the community. And the president asked me, deputy president asked me in Cape Town, but why would you do such a project for the community? I said, well, I'm also part of the community. And I want to increase my area under sugarcane, and he really enjoyed it. He laughed and laughed and laughed. We became friends, and we're still friends today. You heard him talking in his budget speech about his friend, the farmer, Charles Senekal, from the Makuzi area, and that's me. And that pipeline is doing unbelievable work for the communities around my farm at the moment. If I'm correct, water is taken 80 k's away from my farm. Even the King's Palace is getting water from Senekal farming, and that's a feather in our cap. And that's one of the building blocks for our relations with the local community. And the scheme is still growing. Government is just growing it and growing it and growing it, and eventually they'll have to increase my water quota from the dam, because they're taking huge quantities of water, and we love it. We love it. We're proud to be associated with such a scheme. It cost me a lot of money, but I could increase my operation from about 400-500 hectares to nearly 5,000 hectares under irrigation, and that was my gift from our president today.
Mark, these schemes are only possible, and I want to get back to renewable energy. These schemes are only possible with financiers. Somebody's got to finance it. It needs to make business sense. From a financier perspective, where are you in this pipeline?
We generally very close to the people putting together the projects, and that one, right from the beginning, you have to have finance. And we would step in very early in the project, be part of the, or try and be part of the development, the planning, all those kinds of things, so that one can understand exactly where it's coming from, where it's going to, and what would be the best kind of finance to go with it, and structure it accordingly. In some cases, you might do a very short-term finance or longer-term finance, but it's very close collaboration with the client and the developer.
In terms of renewable energy, what are the aspects that you will take into consideration?
When we look at renewable energy, and the unit that I'm in, we look at smaller companies right up to much larger companies. We find the best approach is that we have a look at how much can we save the client. We have a look at what are they currently using, are they on the right tariffs, possibly reduce their thing, have a look at what the energy guzzlers, if one can call it that, are, try and reduce those, because there's many, or there's a lot of efficient technology on the market at the moment that you can put in there, and then have a look at what the renewable alternatives are. And based on that very simple philosophy, one's able to take the savings and try and match the savings to the repayment of the actual solar panels or the technology or whatever it might be. And in that way, we're finding that we're rendering an excellent service to our smaller companies, small, medium enterprises, and the community at large.
And you can actually find a model where this works.
Yes. There's some really intelligent guys in the financial institutions that model these things. You have a look at how the cash flow works, you take in the incentives, you have a look at the repayment period, we extended it in some cases, and it works in such a way that you can get very close to what we call a cash flow neutral situation. It basically means that you can, your saving will be very close to, or as close as possible to what you're paying. So it works, and we're finding a huge take-up, especially from smaller businesses that are looking at this and becoming independent.
You're watching Nation in Conversation. After the break, I'd like to focus on the energy plant that you're putting up, Charles, and also on the impact that that has on the community. Welcome back to Nation in Conversation. Charles, the energy plant that you are contemplating, that you're busy with, again, that has a big impact on the community. How did you structure that?
Theo, we did the research. We went overseas. We visited like 7 European countries doing it already. And we got the best technology. We discovered that in Denmark. We spoke to a banker. And I can just say there is a lot of sympathy from bankers for a good, viable project. I want to back Mark there. And we used very good technology. We used very good engineers. They're our partners today. And we could go to Eskom and say, listen, this is a bankable project. It'll be the first time in the world that extraneous matter from sugarcane is used to generate power, but this is what we want to do. They had a look at the research we've done. They are very happy, Eskom or NERSA actually, that we use the correct technology as well as top quality equipment. And as I said earlier on, at the first time we came up with one of their bids and they immediately accepted it. There will be approximately 400 jobs created by the project, which I very much like. My part, where I come from, Northern Zululand, serious unemployment problem. And 400 jobs is not easy to generate there. And we're very happy with that. We will commit ourselves, we have committed ourselves to donate 10 million rand a year to the surrounding communities. I think we can change the face of Mkuzi.
And that's to the 4 individual communities around there.
4 individual tribes, yes.
Charles, if you look at these big projects and the fact that it is driven by the underlying farming enterprise, should one not start to look at the farm as a community asset that actually can sustain bigger areas and be instrumental in service delivery from a capital intensive, from an employment, and from a creation of wealth point of view?
Theo, definitely. It is imperative that especially large farmers like myself must be involved in community upliftment. I don't want to have a hungry neighbor, and I don't want a poor one. I'm currently busy with a few schemes that will get donor funds from overseas. That's how exciting the projects are. Bringing these poorer communities sitting with valuable land, bringing them into serious farming, creating jobs, teaching them to fish, that old, and not to just receive. And they're highly excited about it. So getting even the sugar milling companies and the Sugar Association of South Africa interested in the projects, because our sugar industry is moving northwards. You can't grow sugarcane in South Africa with the climate change we have under dry land conditions. Some guys are still battling after the drought of 4 years ago to repay their commitments, and they have another serious drought. Our small grower scheme in South Africa, which is a world-leading scheme where we have approximately 20 to 30,000 small farmers farming sugarcane, I think that's been destroyed
By the weather.
By the weather. And the weather is being destroyed by the unfriendly way in which we treat the nature, the hanging judge that I referred to earlier.
This renewable energy, it seems to me, if I listen to conversation, that we are creating a new industry with opportunities, with skills, with employment possibilities. If you look at this industry, how do you see the industry going forward and developing?
Theo, I don't think Nedbank would have gone into the sustainability arena, and that if we didn't see this as not only having a massive impact on the climate, on the planet Earth and those things, as well as the social, economic sides of it. And by creating and stimulating this industry by financing it, not only the people putting the panels on their roofs, or the suppliers or the engineers or whoever might be involved in this value chain, but by trying to create a cohesive financing environment. I think it's going to go from strength to strength, and it's something that affects everybody from the house owner to the large industrialist, large farm industry. There is a solution for everybody, and I think it's just going to grow the economy at a rapid rate.
And it's growing in the right direction in terms of technology, in terms of green, in terms of job creation, in terms of unlocking other assets for the future.
Absolutely. Initially, we were heavily reliant on importing equipment from overseas. You heard Charles referring quite a few times to going overseas to have a look at what's going there. And we're now starting to see the IDC starting to pump money into industry, and that, so that small, medium enterprises can start creating local panels designed for local conditions and that. And it just the supply and the demand just works so well in this thing, because it's something we all need, and everybody wants something free, and sunlight is free, and so let's just put panels everywhere. Yes.
After the break, I'd like to talk about the future and some of the trends we are seeing. You are watching Nation in Conversation. Welcome back to Nation in Conversation. Charles, everything sounds exciting. You've done a lot of homework as to what we are seeing, where trends are developing. Can you share some of it with us?
Yes, Theo, I think so many exciting projects are underway at the moment. I'm very fond of wind and solar, but these days a lot of work is being done on sea current, and I think that will be the solution to the world's energy problems. They quote, I saw it on TV yesterday, Google, if we can utilize 5% of the energy of the sea currents in the world, the whole world's energy crisis will be solved.
Are we moving towards a direction whereby the world will again have enough energy that will be affordable but will be greener?
For sure. We will never stop. I can't see anyone stopping with research and investment before the world's electricity needs are addressed. It's a continuous process.
And that is linked to the growth of the economy. Without power, without sustainable power, no business can thrive. Employment is unsure, but we also would not see economies grow.
I agree 100% with you.
Mark, part of the discussion when you talk about energy is if I produce my own energy, one thing is to be self-sufficient. That means to manage the cost of the energy. But the other side of that coin is to supply energy back into the grid. Therefore, if I have surplus energy, I can sell it or tap into the grid. What is the situation around that, and how does it work?
It's a bit of a mixed bag at the moment. The financing option looks at how do you mitigate the impact of the rising costs, how do you mitigate the impact of possible load shedding, and then how do you utilize your structure that you've put up, not only to be independent, but also to put in the grid. At this stage, it's still very much a mixed bag in that some municipalities are allowing it at viable rates, so one could almost become a power producer. Other municipalities at this stage are still, they might not be where they need to be developmentally or whatever the case may be, and it's not viable. It's also very difficult if the grid is down for whatever reason it is. You've got to make sure that you're not putting electricity into the grid, so there's a whole lot of controls and stuff. So it is possible. It's something that we're looking towards going into the future, and it might even be a solution to some of our city problems that we've got, is if everybody's generating their own electricity and putting the surplus back in there again.
Share the load.
Share the load, yeah.
So an element that is noted in the rest of the world, but not in South Africa. We used to the concept that we have these massive big power plants and they generate the electricity. But in a lot of countries in the rest of the world, that is not the case. There's space for smaller individual power plants. What if you look at some of your research, we find that the South African model of big power plants is not necessarily what you see in the rest of the world.
You're correct. it's getting very expensive to distribute the electricity. You know, you see these serious pylons and the maintenance that must be done on them, as well as the impact of those on the environment again. I think it's the white vulture. We have a population of probably about 300 to 400 only in the whole of South Africa left. And recently, Eskom wanted to build a new power line on our farm, and we objected. And it was completely turned down because most of the vultures are in our area. And it was turned down by the environmentalists saying, please go underground. So it's not easy for Eskom to just expand its network. There are items that we never considered historically. But today, there are so many environmentalists saying, no, you can't do this, you can't do that. So, and it's also highly expensive, right, to build and to maintain. And I think Eskom is wise, bringing in top quality equipment, not fly-by-night stuff. They will say, listen, I don't like this turbine, I don't like this boiler. They must have a say in your operation because you're going to play a very important part in their future.
We talked about South Africa and what we're doing. We talked about Europe, but the rest of Africa is also addressing this problem. It's not only a South African problem. It is a problem, and there is projects in the rest of Africa as well.
Yes, we're very involved. Senekal Farming is involved in a project in Ethiopia, and they are addressing the problem very, very, very positively. They built a dam in the Blue Nile. They'll generate about 4,500 megawatt of electricity there. And one of their major export products in 2 years' time will be electricity to other states in Africa that are not doing it. You heard over the news that South African government and the Congo are going to build a hydro plant in the Congo, generating approximately 4.5 megawatt of electricity as well. Africa is the continent where most hydro activities must take place. And Africa is an awakening giant. I really think that most of the green power will be generated on our continent in the very near future.
A big development will be if we could get an integrated African grid, but that is for another discussion. Thank you very much. You can follow us on Twitter at Nation Converse or visit the website nationinconversation.co.za. From me, Theo Foster, goodbye.
Nation in Conversation, proudly brought to you by AFRI, Fort Knox, Interland, Monsanto, Nedbank, NWK, and Senbis.
The world is changing today. The world is changing in every way. Let's stand together, put our hands together, join hands forever. We're making it better. No matter where you are, you could be near or far away. We're